This portrait is said to be one of the composer's favorites. He had several copies made, which he circulated amongst friends, and many considered it one of the most realistic that were made. Turning now to another selection from Ludwig van Beethoven, Bicentennial Edition, 1770 to 1970. This portrait is described as the unusual expression of the eyes being due to the fact that Schumann worked on them when Beethoven had invited him for a cup of 60-bean coffee, i.e. at a time when the composer was particularly excited by drinking strong coffee. You decide. Moving now towards the reason I picked this book, I'm going to read just a couple paragraphs, which are the lead-in to what is known as Beethoven's HEILEGESTADT Testament. For several years already, Beethoven had been complaining in letters to intimate friends such as the physician Franz Wegler in Bonn or Karl Amenda from the Baltic province of Courland, who had had to leave Vienna far too soon for Beethoven's liking, about the beginnings of a complaint which was affecting his hearing. The first signs of gradually increasing deafness had made themselves felt. The feelings of the young artist, who thus had reason to fear the complete loss of his most sensitive and most precious organ, are revealed by that deeply moving document, the so-called HEILEGESTADT Testament. Beethoven's inner attitude was not passive resignation, but courageous resolution to accept the challenge of fate. At precisely the period of this testament, Beethoven's creative achievements soared most steeply upwards. This was the time of the Second Symphony, the three violin sonatas, opus 30, and the piano sonatas, opus 31, the bagatelles, opus 33, and the violin romances, opus 40 and 50. In those dark days, however, he also wrote the well-known Gellert songs, opus 48, which give us, in this context, some idea of what was going on in the sorely tried composer's innermost being. Last paragraph. Comparatively, few compositions date from 1802, but immensely artistic energy was concentrated in those few works, outstanding among which are the Violin Sonata, opus 47, the celebrated Kreutzer Sonata, and, above all, the Third Symphony, opus 55. The history of the origins of this work, the Eroica, is well known. Beethoven had originally entitled it Bonaparte, but angrily scratched out the name on the score in a copyist's hand when he heard that Napoleon had himself proclaimed emperor. In his opinion, the general, whom he had formerly respected very highly, seeing in him the embodiment of the ancient concept of leadership, would now begin to trample human rights underfoot in the furtherance of his ambition. Work on the Eroica went on particularly during the summer, spent at Oberdobler. All right, and then I'm going to read, it's pretty short, the Testament. It's a letter to his brothers Karl and I assume Johann. Looks like this. In German, but we're going to read the translation. It's going to be a lot easier. Check this out. Auf Deutsch. Pardon. For my brothers Karl and, there's a space, Beethoven. O you men who consider or describe me as quarrelsome, peevish, or misanthropic, how greatly you wrong me. You do not know the secret reasons why I seem to you to be so. From my childhood onward, my heart and soul have been filled with tender feelings of goodwill, and I have always been willing to perform great and magnanimous deeds. But reflect, for the past 6 years, I have been in an incurable condition, made worse by unreasonable doctors. From year to year, I have hoped to be cured, but in vain, and at last I have been forced to accept the prospect of a permanent infirmity, whose cure may perhaps take years, or may prove to be quite impossible. Although born with a fiery and lively temperament, and even fond of the distractions of society, I soon had to cut myself off and live in solitude. When occasionally I decided to ignore my infirmity, how cruelly I was then driven back by the doubly sad experience of my poor hearing. Yet I could not find it in myself to say to people, "Speak louder, shout, for I am deaf." How could I possibly have referred to the weakening of a sense which ought to be more perfectly developed in me than in other people, a sense which I once possessed in the greatest perfection, to a degree which certainly few of my profession possess or have ever possessed? I cannot do it, so forgive me if you see me withdraw from your company, greatly though I should like to mix with you. Though I should like to mix with you. My misfortune afflicts me doubly, as I am bound to be misunderstood. For me, there can be no relaxation in human society, refined conversations, or mutual confidences. I must be entirely alone, and except when the utmost necessity takes me to the threshold of society, I must live like an outcast. If I appear in company, I am overcome by acute anxiety, for fear I am in danger of revealing my condition. Such has been the case this last half year, spent in the country, instructed by my sensible doctor to spare my hearing as much as possible, which is indeed my present inclination. Sometimes I have been driven by my desire to seek the company of other human beings, but what humiliation when someone standing beside me heard a flute from afar off, while I heard nothing, or when someone heard a shepherd singing, and again I heard nothing. Such experiences have brought me close to despair, and I came near to ending my own life. Only my art held me back, as it seemed to me impossible to leave the world until I had produced everything I feel it had been granted to me to achieve. So I continue this miserable existence, truly miserable, as my body is so sensitive that my condition can change rapidly from very good to very bad. Patience, that must be my guide, as I am determined, and I hope will always remain so, to endure until it pleases the inexorable parquet to break the thread. Perhaps my lot will improve, perhaps not. At the age of 28, I was compelled to become a philosopher. It has not been easy, and more difficult for an artist than for anyone else. Oh God, you look down on my inner soul and know that it is filled with love of humanity and the desire to do good. Oh my fellow men, when you read this someday, reflect that you have done me wrong, and let him who is unfortunate comfort himself with the thought that he has found someone equally unfortunate who, despite all the burdens placed on him by nature, did all which was in his power to earn a place among worthy artists and human beings. You, my brothers Carl and Blank, as soon as I am dead, if Professor Schmidt is still living, ask him in my name to describe my disease and add the paper I have written here to the documents of my illness, so that after my death the world will be reconciled with me as far as possible. I better lube up. All right, and stretch. Here we go. At the same time, I hereby nominate you both as heirs to my little property, if it can be so called. Share it honestly, live in harmony, and help each other. You know that the harm you did me has long since been forgiven. I thank you, Brother Carl, in particular, for the goodness you have shown to me of late. My wish is that your lives will be better and less care-laden than mine. Urge your children to follow the path of virtue, as that alone can bring happiness. Money cannot. I speak from experience, as virtue alone has sustained me in my misery, and it was thanks to virtue, together with my art, that I did not end my life by committing suicide. Farewell, and love one another. I thank all my friends, especially Prince Lichnowsky and Professor Schmidt. I wish Prince Lichnowsky's instruments to be kept safely by one of you, but do not make them an occasion for strife between you. As soon as they can serve you in more useful ways, sell them. How happy I shall be of it in my grave. I can still be of use to you both. So be it, I go joyfully towards death. If it comes before I have had the chance to develop all my artistic abilities, that will be too soon for me, despite my hard fate, and I would wish it to be postponed. Yet should I not be satisfied, would it not release me from a condition of endless suffering? Come when you will, death, I will meet you resolutely. Farewell, and do not entirely forget me when I am dead. I have deserved to be remembered by you, as I have often thought of you during my lifetime. May you be happy, Ludwig von Beethoven. Heiligenstadt, 6th of October, 1802. Which, rickety segue, from 1802, Beethoven is said to have been born on December 16th. Today is the 17th, which is when he was baptized. I just have to say that technically his birth was never recorded. His baptism was recorded. And this video is recorded. Thank you for listening, possibly watching, more for listening, really. And I'll leave you with a photo of Johann von Beethoven, Beethoven's youngest brother, apothecary in Linz, later landowner at Neixendorf near Krems.